For those of you who don't know, Connor runs a freelancers marketplace. It's all built without code, and I let him do a sort of mini intro himself, but he's going to walk us through some of the setup that he's done, and we can just sort of get some questions asked. If you want to put them in the questions tab, we can try and like batch them so it's not so stop and start. But yeah, I'll let you have a little intro, Connor, and take it away.
Hi, my name's Connor. I started a freelancer marketplace called Unicorn Factory. I started a few years ago. Before it kind of turned into what it is now, it was kind of just like a referral service that I had for friends, where I would just refer work to them. And then I kind of stumbled into the Webflow world, and I kind of figured that building out a bit of a platform would be a real good way to get additional work and get more referral revenue. And over time, it just kind of evolved into basically just a bunch of landing pages for different freelancers. And yeah, after that, I discovered Zapier. So I managed to automate a lot of the processes that I was doing manually at the time. And yeah, now it's kind of evolved into what it is now. We have over 300 freelancers in New Zealand. And yeah, I basically just get them leads. The whole platform is built using no-code tools. I use Webflow for the front end, Airtable for the database, Zapier to automate everything. I use Parabola to do a lot of the data syncing between all the different platforms, and Memberstack for payments and gating content. But yeah, I think that's like a bit of an intro. I think a lot of people might have seen my video that I did on how to build a marketplace without code. So I think this chat here is kind of going to be a little bit of a continuance of that.
Awesome. Yeah. So do you want to walk us through like the basic setup of how it's put together and what does what?
So I'll just share my screen. I think that would probably be easiest. Cool. So yeah, it's real simple. It's just a directory here. The entire front end's built in Webflow. We've got a bunch of freelancers on here. Each freelancer has a profile page with a bit of an about section, case studies that they can add, skills. They can add their rates, kind of a bit of a similar setup to something like Dribbble or something like that. Yeah, the way it works is a business can basically jump onto a profile page, fill out the contact form, and basically what I do is I use Zapier to basically forward emails. So I think there are like a few things that I can probably show. The first step is the sign up process. So what I have done here is I use Memberstack to basically sign up users and give them access to the user dashboard that I have created. And basically, this is what the user dashboard looks like. There are basically a series of community jobs that freelancers can apply to. And yeah, so the way that it works is all of this part here is all hidden in Memberstack. There is also like additional rights, which shows them like a whole bunch of additional things there. I'm going to log into my account in a second so you can see what it looks like. But the first step of the entire process is that they can apply to join. And the way that that works is they just jump into Airtable and fill out a form that basically is everything that I require in order for them to create a profile for them. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward process. As soon as a user submits all of this, I send them a confirmation email if I approve their profile. And then what they can do is they can they basically verify their account. They basically get access to the user dashboard. So I'll just show you what it looks like on my account.
Quick question: why are you using Airtable forms instead of a Webflow form to sign up?
The main reason why I use Airtable is because I use multiple platforms. So I use Webflow, Airtable. I also have like mailing. I use MailerLite to do a bit of email automation. And basically the reason why I use Airtable is because it's easier for me to sync data between all the different platforms from there. Now, in theory, you could use the Webflow CMS to store all the data, but I just kind of find Airtable is a lot more visually pleasing. So the main thing that I love about Airtable is that you have filtered views, which basically says things like, if I approve a freelancer, that it moves them into a special view, which then triggers all the automation in Zapier. Now, that is not possible in, say, Webflow, or maybe it is possible, but it'd be really difficult to keep an overview of what's going on. So Airtable just has the functionality that I need to trigger a lot of the things in Zapier that allow me to automate a majority of my processes. Does that make sense?
So it's just sort of take one thing out of it and just keep it straight with Airtable.
Yeah, so I honestly think that if anyone is like working on building a marketplace or a directory of some sort, using Airtable is kind of like the place to store all the data. Is just the best way to go, because just the fact that you can filter things out, and the Zapier integration that Airtable has as well allows you to trigger a whole bunch of actions based on people being moved into different views. And that is like something that I don't think any other tool can do at the moment. So yeah, it's second to none, I think, Airtable. Like, I don't think I could really run the Unicorn Factory or automate it to the extent that I have if it wasn't for Airtable. All right, so should I just keep going in like the functionality side of things?
Can we not get into the Airtable then? Can the freelancers bid on a project on Unicorn Factory, or is it just direct messaging to that person?
Okay, so the way that the way that this part works is that I just make introductions to clients. So a client will submit a project through the community brief page, and what I do is it just creates a project brief like this. And it has the budget levels, how many intros have been made, what skills are required. And if they want to have an introduction to this particular client, all they need to do is just click on this button here, hit the submit button. And what that does is trigger automation to let me know that they want to be introduced to a client. So there's no bidding as such, but this is a feature that's only available to users who have a premium account. And I charge $25 a month for that, or $99 a year. So that's kind of just like one of the added features that I give a user.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know that. This is just a demo. This is like an explanation of how Connor built his own marketplace. So it's sort of an inspiration to show how you can build your own marketplace with sort of automatic messaging, and you can use this for various different things. So yeah, it's more of a demo workshop.
All right. So this here is basically everything in the Unicorn Factory. I have like a bunch of tabs. One's for freelancers. So unfortunately, I can't show you everyone's details, only because I've got people's email addresses in there and so on. So I'll just, I've got a Makerpad filter view. Here in this case, I only got my details in there, because I don't mind if you have my email address. But basically what this is a view that I have for all the different freelancers. And within, so basically what I have here is I have things like current statuses, locations. And so with these drop downs, what I do is I basically use this to trigger different types of actions. So when a freelancer signs up, they automatically get the Memberstack registered tag. And what that does is it moves them into a view that triggers like an email sequence. Then when I start reviewing their application with all the information that they filled out, which gets sent to here, so it has their profile picture, all that kind of stuff. Again, they get like a bit of a notification saying, hey, your review's currently in, your application is currently in review. And basically, I use those statuses and those drop downs to basically create filtered views that trigger certain types of actions in Zapier. And so right now, yeah, this is kind of how it's set up. I think the most important thing to consider is when all of this information is sent to, say, Webflow, you need certain things like the Webflow membership item ID. So all of that information is stored in here. So this, for example, here is the individual skills that someone can add to their profile. So that's things like Facebook marketing, SEO, Webflow, all those types of things. Each of those skills has their own item in a Webflow collection called skills. And each of those items has a Webflow ID attached to it. So what I do here is I basically create a list of all the Webflow commonly created Webflow IDs that a user has that will be attached to their profile, so that then when the automation starts, I can automatically add all of that. I think there's a video on, I think Ben made a video on how you can use custom requests in Zapier to basically send multi-reference items to a, for example, in my case, a profile. That is probably one of the most requested questions I have, is how you can automate that part of the process. So yeah, this is basically the setup. It kind of stores everything that you need to know in order to send data to Webflow and to all the other platforms that I use. Then I also have a client dashboard. Those are basically all the clients who have made inquiries. Again, I've filtered out only myself. And basically, you can see how many inquiries a client has made. I use this particular section to send them to custom audiences in Webflow. That's something that you can do through Zapier, so that you can then run ads targeted specifically at people who have hired freelancers through the marketplace. Then I also have a messages tab, which basically is all the inquiries that freelancers get. Now, a quick note about the messages tab. There was a period where we had a lot of people come to the Unicorn Factory and basically spam freelancers. So what I did was I built a approval system where an inquiry would come in like this, and I need to manually approve it before the email is forwarded on to one of the freelancers. This is something that I highly recommend doing, only because as your platform grows, spam is inevitable. I never thought it would happen to me, but it did, and it happens a lot. So having like an approval system like this allows you to make sure that you don't spam freelancers or whoever like is your customer on your website.
Yeah,
and then it goes on. Yeah,
we had the same thing where we had like a marketplace like this. Then someone would just send like 50 messages, all the same, spamming. So we had an approval system the same as this, with the check mark before it like starts a automation. The one question I just want to remember what the record ID formula was. Someone just asked about that, and just maybe explain why that's what it is in the messages.
Cool. So so it's just a formula really, which is pretty simple. It's just record ID. And so I don't know, it's not more complicated than that. But the reason I use this is because this first field here has to be a unique identifier if you want to update it going forward. Say, for example, so messages is probably not a great example, but let's go back to freelancers. If you do not have a unique ID in that first column, what will happen when you try to update things or find those particular records is that it might update or edit the wrong record. So I highly recommend just creating unique identifiers for the primary record, is what it's called. And so for freelancers, I give it the email address because obviously everyone will only have one particular email address. But other than that, I just use record ID as like the unique identifier. And yeah, that's the formula, just record ID. And it will just generate the actual Airtable ID that you can then use in Zapier as well. That's pretty much that. Are there any other questions on like the Airtable setup? I basically use it for everything. Like when a freelancer pays me, the record is stored in there. When a client makes a job submission, it gets stored in there. Basically anything and everything that goes through Webflow, goes through Webflow or goes through the platform, gets stored in here as like a record. And that just allows me to very easily kind of see what's going on the platform. I can kind of manually approve things if I have to. And yeah, it's just a really nice way to keep an overview of like what's going on in the platform as a whole. Cool. So the next thing that I use that is pretty important is Zapier. So at the moment I have 32 Zaps that basically power the Unicorn Factory. And in my tutorial on how to build a marketplace without code, I've got 3 specific examples in there on how you can kind of rebuild some of the key ones. But yeah, basically, I think one that I think people find interesting is when freelancers update their profile. So I allow freelancers to basically update their pricing or their rates and all those types of things in their profile. So I'll quickly show you what that page looks like. It's basically all it is it's a form submission that has a hidden form field with a user's Memberstack ID, so that when they submit the form, I can match it up with their Memberstack ID in Webflow, in Airtable, sorry. So as this particular part here. So what a user can do is they can basically select their experience levels, their rates, their current availability, which is really useful if you want to make sure that clients actually manage to get in touch with freelancers who are available and if they're available to work in-house. So what happens here is when they submit that, that will automatically update a freelancer's profile. So it updates all of these records here. And so the way that I do it is I use Zapier and I go through the following steps. So step number 1 is when a user submits all that information that I just showed on that page, it counts as a form submission with a hidden form field, which is basically the Memberstack ID. What that does is as soon as that step happens is it goes and finds that user ID in Airtable. And this is like the key reason why I store everything in Airtable. If you tried to do this in straight in Webflow, it would be really difficult to like manage it and also to keep an eye on what's working, what's not working. But what it does then is when it's in Airtable, it pulls all the information associated with that particular user, including their Webflow item ID for their profile. And then what it does is it updates that item with all the information that they submitted in the form. So you can obviously, there are 2 ways that you can update items. There's the update item action in Zapier and the update live item in Zapier. The update live item basically allows you to do it automatically. You don't need to republish your site. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then the update item updates it, but you need to publish your site before the actions are live on the website. And then from there, I also make sure that the record in Airtable is updated with the latest submissions through that form. And then I also send myself a notification through Slack. So basically, the way I kind of approach this was I just go and have a look at like the process that I go through manually. And once I figured out what I need to do manually, then it's very easy for me to automate the entire process as a whole. And so I've just basically started off with the first thing was automating the process of a freelancer signing up. The second part of the process was automating all the messages that I get sent to freelancers. And it's basically just evolved into what this is now, which is 32 Zaps. And yeah, I kind of feel like when you are working on your particular use case, you will kind of figure out after a while what you're spending most time on. And usually there are ways to automate it in certain ways or to improve certain types of processes. So yeah, I highly recommend just breaking it down in steps that you need to take manually. So for example, first I need to do this, then I need to do this, then I need to do this, and then use a tool like Zapier to kind of automate all of these processes. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about Zapier. I think anyone who knows Zapier kind of has like a good idea of how it all works. Anyone who hasn't given it a try yet, try it. It's a game changer. It's probably the most expensive no-code tool that I use, but it's worth it. It really does like a lot of awesome things.
What's your argument on Zapier versus Integromat?
To be completely honest with you, I don't think I've given Integromat a fair go. I tried it, and the first few, I kind of don't, I had like a few things that I tried to set up, and it just didn't work, and it was just too much of a hassle. However, the pricing is real good. So I don't know, I could consider it in the future, but by the time Integromat came out, I already had set up like 20 zaps that it was kind of like, it would have been a bit of a mission to like switch it all over, but I don't know. I'm open to giving it a go in the future, but I haven't honestly spent enough time on Integromat. The original no-code stack just needs to like remain, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm open to giving it a try. Like I know a lot of people who have used Integromat and speak very highly of it. I like the Zapier interface. I kind of find it simple enough. The pricing is a bit more than all the other platforms that I use, but I also kind of just think about like, what is the actual cost and how much time does it actually save me? And in the context of that, charging what they charge is not that bad at all. There's not really much to say about Memberstack. Like Memberstack has been awesome for me because it's allowed me to monetize the platform. I had the directory as it is now up and running for quite a bit of time, but I was sending people like Stripe checkout links and no one would pay. But now that Memberstack, now that Memberstack has come in, it's really like streamlined that process of like hiding content from people and also monetizing the platform. And that's been really game changing only because this like monthly recurring revenue has been growing like every single month, and I have now got a market. I can just put all that money straight into marketing, and that has really accelerated the rate at which the platform has grown. And I don't think that would be possible without Memberstack. With that being said, I also think that like Memberstack is probably out of all the tools that I'm using right now, the most underdeveloped. There are like a whole bunch of features that they could add that would really make things amazing, but it really, there is nothing better than Memberstack out there that I know of. If anyone knows of anything else, let me know. But Memberstack is pretty key, and I think now that they've raised money and they're like building a little bit of a team, they're going to be adding features that will allow you to take it to the next level. But just to be clear, how I use Memberstack, I only use it for people to sign up and hide content. I don't store any other information in there. I don't store like their like the amount of leads that they get and all that kind of stuff. It's just simply their email address, their first name, last name, and then based on their membership type, I hide access to certain types of pages. I use it for no more than that. All right, so then I've got another tool that I've discovered that has been game changing, and that has been Parabola. Now, Parabola, okay, I'm still learning my way around Parabola, but when I started with Parabola, I completely did not get how it works. So I kind of used it the first time and I was like, I don't get it. And I kind of just left it. But then Aaron made a pretty awesome video on how he imported page views from Google Analytics and basically put that into an Airtable collection so that he could sort his blog posts based on page views. So what I did was I gave it another chance, and now I consider Parabola like one of like the most valuable tools that I have. Well, not the most valuable, but like an incredibly valuable tool for the entire no-code stack as a whole. So for everyone who doesn't know what it does, is it basically allows you to update big data sets, kind of what Zapier does for individual records, Parabola does for like huge records. So for example, if you want to make sure that your Webflow collection is exactly the same as in Airtable, what you'd want to do is you'd want to sync the data with each other. And that's what you can use Parabola for. It basically syncs everything that's in Webflow to Airtable, and yeah, it's incredibly awesome. I recommend checking that out. I made a little video tutorial on how I built this particular ranking system for freelancers. It is slightly more technical because you kind of need to understand how to write JSON, but once you've had to play around with it like a few times and you've trialed and errored a bit, then you'll kind of figure out how it works. you'll start to understand how to read documentation on like the API documentation pages for all the tools that you use. And then from there, you can really do whatever you want.
What's the benefit of having Parabola do the sync for Webflow and Airtable if your Zaps have technically already done that?
Great question. As I'm building more things in Zapier, like you can't do anything retrospectively. So like if you, for example, set something up in Webflow and you, for example, don't have a bunch of item IDs stored somewhere, then you can't use Zapier to retroactively basically zap those that data over to, say, Airtable or wherever you need to do it. And that is kind of the problem that Parabola solves. Instead of looking at it as like a one-off action, for example, using webhooks, basically what this does is it just pulls entire databases. So for me, it was most valuable because it allowed me to retrospectively fix a bunch of things that I hadn't initially set up in Zaps. So it kind of just makes sure that at any time when you want to continue on, when you want to build new things, that you are basically starting with like a synced database between the two. Yeah, so those are like the main tools that I use. Yeah, so just in summary, Webflow for the front end, Zapier for like actions, to automate actions like when someone submits a form, when someone signs up, all that kind of stuff. Memberstack to hide content, Parabola to sync data with each other. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Will mentioned that you said Jetboost as well.
Yeah, and Jetboost. So Jetboost is honestly so simple, but so beautiful. Basically, if anyone has tried to build it like a directory in Webflow, you've probably come across the Mix It Up tutorial in the Webflow forums. And basically, the idea behind it is that you can filter things like collection lists. And the Mix It Up tutorial is really awesome. But then Chris built Jetboost, and basically what it is it's a real simple setup. It's kind of like if you set up Memberstack before, then this will be super easy. All you need to do is you install it all, and then what it does is it filters basically your collection list based on the variables that you select. It's awesome. I love it. And yeah, this is kind of what it does. You can kind of do things like you can search for certain types of skills and filter it all out. And yeah, it's been a game changer just from like a user experience perspective. As soon as I installed this, the amount of inquiries that we started getting for freelancers through the platform just shot through the roof, just because it was like a lot easier for people to find the right freelancer, especially if it was tied to like the location that they were in and all that type of stuff. So Jetboost, easy to set up. And if you're struggling with it, there's an awesome tutorial in the Webflow showcase that basically shows you how a particular Jetboost system set up, and you can basically just copy and paste what they have done, and you should get it up and running. And also, Chris's customer support is through the roof. I think I message him like every 2 days, just with random things. And he's so responsive.
He had he said he messaged me because we use Jetboost on Makerpad, and one morning he messaged me a screenshot that Siri had like suggested that he messaged me like over his girlfriend because I obviously message him that much for support. So yeah, it's been a game changer for us too. It's been one of the keen tools we use.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's super, and the pricing of it's great as well. I think it's really cheap to set it up, and like the amount of time that it saves you, or maybe not time, but like it's just like the added functionality given the price is just such good value. So yeah.
So Hale has asked, can't that filtering be done directly between Airtable and Webflow? Seems like column filtering on any Excel or Airtable.
Yeah, so there would be ways around it. So I assume what you're asking is, can I, for example, I have like collection pages for people who have certain skills,
The filtering on Webflow can only be single filter. Like you can't click, in this case, Webflow, skills, and Wellington to show those results. And if you embedded an Airtable, you could do multiple things, but it's a different, because this is on the Webflow CMS. So this would be actually, because it's multiple filters across multiple different collections, that's where it starts getting difficult, where you want to be able to say skills and locations sort of are the...
Yeah, exactly. So you can't, just on the Webflow CMS, you can't have like an SEO Wellington page, even though I think you could, arguably you could, but it doesn't make sense for me to do it because that will mean that some pages have like one person in the directory. This is just a real cool way to do it. Like if people are like looking for SEO people in New Zealand and they can select their location like that, it's just as good. Plus, yeah, it just looks better. I think it starts getting weird when you have like, if you would have a page where you only have like one particular freelancer who has that skill, or in this case, like no freelancers. So this is definitely like the best way to do it at the moment, yeah.
If you were setting up this marketplace again today, would you do the exact same stack and would you build it in the same way? Or what would you do differently?
Yeah, I would use the same stack and I'd go through the same process, because the cool thing is like, it's quite easy to like, just like make improvement on things. So I actually think where I am now is probably as good as I could get it, given the tools that are out there any given, like at the moment. And so it's very easy to make like slight adjustments and all that kind of stuff. So I'll definitely do it a lot faster, but I'd use the exact same processes. I'd use the exact same tools. And yeah, I'm actually gonna be testing that very soon because I'm going to be building the Unicorn Factory Canada. So I'll be able to give you some updates on how that went.
Yeah, Paul, if you're having an issue with Memberstack, I'd just encourage you to reach out to their support because they're really quick. Say that Makerpad sent you and they should be quicker. So hopefully that'll help. Alison's asking, is the platform for sale?
Short answer is no, the Unicorn Factory is not for sale. It's my baby. I love it. Yeah, I'm not going to sell the Unicorn Factory. However, I have just sold a no-code marketplace for house sitters. I built the no-code marketplace for house sitters I did with a friend, so it's not like a huge sale. I basically started with him and I sold my share of the company, but we basically built something out, and now I'm basically doing like one-on-one training with him, basically showing him how he can basically turn his house sitting company into like something like the Unicorn Factory feature-wise. So if anyone wanted to build a marketplace like the Unicorn Factory, I can do one-on-one coaching. I basically walk you through the entire process that I went through. I basically break it down into like 3 main stages, which is I'll show you how to like build it in Webflow, with more of a focus on like how to structure the CMS rather than how to use Webflow as a tool. But if you need help with Webflow, I can help with that as well. Then I show you basically all the automation, and then I also do like a little bit of paid acquisition so you can get traction and stuff like that. But if anyone wants to get into the no-code world, I'll just like build your own thing. It takes time for sure to learn all the tools, but there are heaps of resources out there that allow you to at least get started. And then everything that like the Unicorn Factory has become is just like an iteration on a previous version of something. I basically only built like a lot of these things because it would be annoying for me to deal with it manually. So yeah, I'll just kind of give it a crack yourself. And if you have any issues, reach out to me.
Perfect. Well, yeah, appreciate you.
I go to Ben for help. I just basically tell you what Ben tells me.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and showing us this, and we'll end the webinar there. And sorry for any technical issues, but yeah, we got there in the end.
It's the internet in New Zealand. It's like we're just on the other side of the world. This takes so much extra time.
You should.
But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for having me, Ben. We were bound to have technical issues one way or the other, so I'm happy we kind of covered them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was fun.
Sweet. Well, I'll chat to you soon. Cheers for your time.
All righty.
Cheers.
See you, bro.
Bye.